Hey guys, I hope that you are doing well. We're in Mark 5 and 6 this weekend. And man, I love Mark 5 and 6. There's so many good things and there's so many things I could pull out of here. Honestly, we don't have time for all of those things. But I love that we see at the very beginning of Mark 5 that we serve a God that changes things. I mean, Jesus comes on the scene and man, he changes things, right? I mean, he meets a man who was living among the dead in the tombs, who was touching unclean people in unclean places because he couldn't live near other humans. He was probably filthy and lonely, and people were terrified of him. No one was able to restrain him. He had often been chained up. He was crying out. He was cutting himself with stones. He fit every single bill that Jewish people would have told you. This is a sign of a madman. This guy fit it all. And Jesus completely changes him. Completely changes him by getting the demons out of him. And one of the things that I love about the story, there's so many applications to the story really, but I think the more I read the story, the more I realize that Jesus not only changes things, but Jesus wants us to be uncomfortable. Well, where do I get that? Well, I think the reality is that Jesus in this story makes people really, really uncomfortable. He makes the pig farmers really, really uncomfortable. How? He sends the demons. He allows the demons, which I love that Jesus has to allow the demons to move because he's in control and sovereign over it all. And they move out of this man into these pigs. They run off the cliff and they all die and drown as a result of it. So the pig farmers are really, really mad. They're really, really uncomfortable. Who is this man that makes my pigs go off the cliff and also destroys my economic livelihood for the next little while because of a result? And the pig farmers, Jesus made them uncomfortable. Jesus made the people of the town uncomfortable because they're used to this man being crazy and crying out and cutting himself and living among the dead in the tombs and being chained up and yelling and screaming and being filthy and dirty. They're used to this man doing that, right? But now all of a sudden he's just sitting there and he's dressed and he's in his right mind and he's not doing any of those things. And these people are fearful because they're uncomfortable because something is happening that makes them uncomfortable. But then at the end of this same story in Mark chapter 5, the man who was possessed by a demon, who has been changed by Jesus, who is no longer that way, asked Jesus to go with him. Hey, can I go with you guys? Can I be your disciple? Can I follow you? Can I learn from you? And what does Jesus tell him? Jesus tells him no. Hey, I know maybe you would be comfortable doing this, but no, that's not what I have for you. What I have for you is for you to go back to where you're from, back to your home, and I want you to tell people your story. I want you to tell people what God has done for you. I want you to tell people about the mercy that God has shown you. And he tells this man no because he cares more about God's purpose in this man's life. He cares more about advancing the kingdom of God than he does about this man's comfort or happiness. I think that in our culture, in our society today, I think that the idol of comfort and happiness is one of the largest idols that we have to face and call out in the church world. I mean, think about this. This is one of the main idols that exist in America is that people want to be comfortable. People want to live comfortably. People want to feel comfortable. Think about it, it's how we raise our kids. We say that, man, I want to do this for my kids. I want to provide this style of lifestyle because why? I want them to live comfortably. Or we don't tell our kids no and we give them everything they ask for and everything they want. Why? Because I want my kids to be happy. Well, what if we realized that God doesn't desire for us to be comfortable or happy? God desires for us to be holy and to advance his kingdom, even if it causes us to be uncomfortable. You see, Jesus wants us to get to a place where we're uncomfortable. Why? Because when we're uncomfortable, we have to rely and depend on him. When we're comfortable, we don't. And he wants us to be in a place where we are reliant and dependent on him. And so he makes us uncomfortable. The second thing I think that we see in this story in Mark chapter 5 that Jesus wants from us is I think he wants us to tell our story. Here's the reality for you and I. We were all, every single one of us, we were spiritually dead, but because of Jesus, now we're spiritually alive. We were blind, but now we see. We were deaf, but now we hear. Whatever metaphor you want to use is true of us spiritually. And you've got people around you that don't know Jesus. You've got people around you that have never placed their faith and surrendered their life to the lordship of Jesus Christ. And you know what the best thing you can do? You don't have to be some biblical scholar. You don't have to be some gifted and anointed evangelist. You know what you can do, though? You can tell your story. You can tell them about what God's done for you. You can tell them about the mercy that God has shown you. He wants us to tell our story. And then thirdly, I think we see in Mark 5 and 6 that Jesus really wants us to trust in and depend on him. He wants us to trust in and depend on him. Look at the story of Jairus. Jairus trusted in and depended on Jesus. Hey, Jesus, I need you to come to my house and put your hands on my daughter so that she can be made well. Not so that she might be made well, not so that maybe so that she can be made well. Why? Because I know you can do it. I trust in you, Jesus. I'm dependent on you, Jesus. This woman with the issue of blood. This lady's been seeing doctors for 12 years, spent all of her money, and it says she's worse off now than she was then. But man, I've heard about this man named Jesus, and he's in town. Let me go, even though I'm not supposed to be in a crowd because I'm considered unclean and I'm supposed to yell it out and I'm not supposed to be in the middle. Let me go and just try to touch the edge of this man's cloak because I think he can do something for me. And Jesus looks at her and says, daughter, this risk of faith, this step of faith you took, because of it, I heal you, I make you well, I give you peace with God, and now you get to join back in and be reconciled to other people. You see, Jesus wants us to have trust and dependence on him. Not only that, we also see it when Jesus in Mark 6 sends out the disciples. Right? He sends out the disciples, and what does he tell them? He says, hey, take nothing on the road except for a staff. No bread, no traveling bag, no money, no extra shirt. Why? Because he wanted them to understand that they were the equipment. They didn't need any other equipment, and that they could trust and depend on Jesus to provide for them. Because Jesus wants us to trust and depend on him. Not only do we see him do that for the disciples when he asked them to not take anything but a staff in the situation. We also see this idea that Jesus wants us to trust in and depend on him. We see it in the feeding of the 5,000 as well. We see it in the feeding of the 5,000. Why? Because Jesus puts them in a place where they literally can't do anything about it themselves. Hey, Jesus, there are all these people, they need to eat. You need to send them away. How about you give them something to eat? What do you mean? You think we have enough money to go out and buy food for all of these people? We don't have that much money. We can't do this. There's nowhere close by. We can't do this. And Jesus looks at him and says, what do you have? Go and take inventory. Figure out how much you have. Well, we found these 5 loaves of bread and these 2 fish. Okay, bring them to me. Depend on me. Trust in me. Give what you have to me and watch what I can do with it. You see, Jesus desires for us to trust in him, to depend on him. He likes to put us in situations where we know we can't do it ourselves and where we must rely on him, where we are looking to him, where we are obedient to him. And so Jesus wants us to get uncomfortable. Jesus wants us to tell our story, and Jesus wants us to trust in and depend on him. And then at the very end of Mark 6, when Jesus is walking on the water, the disciples are struggling, he's showing himself to them in this moment. What does he say to them? Have courage. It's me. It's I am. It's God in flesh. Have courage. Don't be afraid because I'm with you. You see, no matter where we're at on an uncomfortability level, or if we're sharing our story, or if we're operating full of faith and we're taking risk and steps of faith, and as long as we're trusting in and depending on Jesus, we don't have to be afraid, and we can have courage because I am is with us. I love you guys. Mark 5 and 6 were incredible. Mark 7 and 8 are going to be too. I'll see you next week for that.